Why do you believe that the suicide rates between the ages of 18 and 35 are through the roof right now? Like based on the people you work with, what you're seeing, why is that?
Yeah, I wish I could reel off the statistic. Having just raised nearly, I think it's about £1,800 for Calm, campaign against living miserably, which is a charity for men's mental health.
Wow.
As part of Kilimanjaro, the percentage of male suicide is rising year on year. The reason for that, I'm not educated enough to be able to tell you. But for me, I know that I have the power to help people. I have the power to serve people. So that's then an obligation. And this leans into then those pillars for me, was that I had all these different passions and things that I knew I wanted to do and lean into, but I could never segment them. They were always mixed and kind of getting linked together, and it wasn't serving me. So that is where now segmenting these different pillars has enabled me to get clarity on what I need to do in each of these sections to progress them forward.
I think you're helping people just by showing them these pillars and living them in your own life. Because, I mean, if we feel lost, it's generally because we're missing one or several pieces of this equation. Like, okay, the journey that we're on, you could equate that with purpose in a sense, and connection. In your case, it's connecting with other people, right? The business side of things, how we're adding value to other people's lives in the marketplace based on our skills and what we like to do. The adventure, doing things and experiencing new things, going new places. I meet people, man, who are like, oh, I haven't had a vacation in 10 years. And some people say it as if they're bragging about it. And it's like, a vacation, by the way, doesn't have to mean you flying across the ocean to go to Greece or Italy or wherever it is. It can. It doesn't have to be you hiking a mountain. A vacation can be you taking the day and going to the nearby lake and having a picnic and swimming and doing things that differs the everyday experience of the life that you're living. It's almost like an interrupt of the pattern that you're playing day in, day out. And then the project, like, I love that the main project, that pillar, because the times when I've been least happy in my life, especially the times when I was 60 pounds heavier, like I just posted a picture yesterday of what I looked like at 21 years old. And then on the right, it was me a couple weeks ago in like a toxic. Obviously I chose a quote.
Let's go.
I liked it. So, but the point was, when I was at my unhappiest on the left-hand side, it was when I didn't have a project to work on. I had nothing I was working towards. And if people integrate these different pillars into their own life in their own unique way, this gives you something to live for.
Yep. It also, from a plan and a goal setting point of view, was invaluable, because now I get to set these different targets for these different pillars. And I got clarity of what I need to do in each one. Because before, I was setting targets of, okay, I want to travel this many countries, but I also want to grow the business to 6 figures a month. I also want to meet the love of my life. I also want to do this. And all of a sudden, it was just getting, too much. And I don't take any steps. So now, by having these different pillars, the different plans that I can now create and put into action, it just becomes much easier. I also now have a switch in my working day, in that I can now focus. Okay, sometimes I'm focused. All right, I've got to do main business. So I'm on calls, meetings, speaking with clients. And then I can switch into, now I'm going to be focused on, the main journey. I'm working on some podcast stuff. How exciting is this? This is awesome. Then I can go into the main adventure. Now I'm looking at some of these fun content and videos and stuff that I'm creating. So I'm gone tenfold more productive just because of the clarity I've gained by segmenting my passions and leaning into them ultimately.
I think it's brilliant. And I don't say that lightly. I believe that it is absolutely brilliant, these 4 pillars. And it simplifies what we already know intellectually, but that we don't tend to practice, because literally the subtext of this episode is we have complex lives. And if you're not sectioning out each of these things and they're all together, it can be so overwhelming to focus on all these things at once. You mentioned, so when these pillars were created, you focused on one at a time for a long time. And that's what I tell people. And that's what I suggest to people, like focus on one area of life first, rather than focusing on all the others. Like when I was that 60-pound heavier person, I focused on fitness. And by focusing on that, it helped me in all the other areas of life. So, but you said that you found a way to integrate all of them in a way and work on them all at once. Like, how did you transition from working on one at a time to being able to segment them? And would you suggest that someone start that way, or would you suggest that we start one at a time on each pillar?
Honestly, it was through failure. And how I got to this place was that when I was focused on, let's say, the main project and primarily focusing on my own fitness and trying to compete there, at that time, business-wise, financials, relationships, everything else dropped off. When I was leaning into solely the main business, then everything else dropped off. So for me now, I was like, okay, well, I've got no consistency across the board on all of these different things. So I have to establish a way that I can work on all of these different pillars, these different things that I'm passionate about, so that I can actually give them the opportunity to be successful in the next 5 years, 10 years. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. My question based on that and going a bit deeper is, someone right now who is in a place of they are simply living the same day, day in, day out, or it's just someone who their days aren't necessarily the same, but they aren't experiencing that feeling of fulfillment from the day to day or the week to week or the month to month. How does someone begin to implement these? Because then they're like, okay, well, what do I start with? The adventure? Do I start with the journey? Do I start with the business? Do I start with my work? Like, how does someone begin to break the cycle of just getting by?
I love that. So it definitely starts with that segmentation and starting to try and get some clarity on actually what you want to be doing with your life. What does the perfect day look like? Where do you want to be in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? None of those questions are brand new, but it's taking the time to sit there and actually map those out. Start to make some decisions on where you want to be and why you want to be better. Then, I have that question in my podcast, The Main Journey, which is, what advice would your future self give you in this current moment? So what advice would your future self give you in this current moment? What that does is those subconscious thoughts you're having right now that you're like, oh, I know I should be doing this thing. It forces you to go and do it.
Wow.
It forces you to sit there and think about, okay, what is, this action I need to take? What habit do I need to stop? It forces you to be better.